You're listening to The Geek Awakens with Mitch,
Matt,
Tabitha,
and Lydia.
Hey everybody, Mitch here, and welcome to another episode of The Geek Awakens presents Artist Alley. With me today, once again, is Rich Davis. He's got a Kickstarter for Angel Hunter coming out pretty soon. Rich, it's been a while since you've been on the show. How you been, man?
Man, I've been fantastic. And yeah, it has. It's been over a year, right?
Yeah, I was. So one thing that I always try to do, like especially with people that have been on the show like a couple of times,
Yeah.
I go back to see like what kind of questions I've asked in the past, so I'm not like that jerk that's like, hey, I'm gonna ask the same question 3 times, you know. So
I get that so often. And I love that you do that because, I do a lot of podcasts and there are some of them they just ask the same 10 questions every single time. And I just give my canned answers. I totally understand the frustration that real celebrities get when they do a press junket for like a movie or something.
mhm.
You legitimately get asked the same question over and over and over again. So I love people like you who actually make the conversation interesting.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as say interesting, but I'll take the compliment. So we are here talking about Angel Hunter. I apologize. What is the elevator pitch for this?
So Angel Hunter is a seinen manga inspired epic dark fantasy told in the American comic book style. It's about humanity's first strides after being expelled from Eden, and humans have to claw out an existence in a world dominated by the 13 fallen angels and their army of kaiju Nephilim.
I'm already here for it. But unfortunately, I can't back it right now because as of this recording, the Kickstarter has not launched yet. When is it going to launch and how long is it going to last?
We're going to launch on May 25th. We actually pushed it back a little bit. Les and I decided we weren't happy with the book. And so we went back, reworked a couple of scenes, and we ended up adding 8 new story pages, which brings us up to 104 story pages in volume 1 of Angel Hunter. So that's a long way of saying that we're going to launch on May 25th, and it's going to run for a month. So May 25th to June 25th.
Nice. And we talked a little bit before we started recording. I mean, that's for a couple of different reasons. That's a good problem to have. Like, especially being like an indie creator such as yourself, to have that opportunity to be like, no, I'm not happy with this. I'm going to fix it, as opposed to being on a time crunch and on a deadline. And it's like, well, it's good enough.
Right.
But also having the opportunity not to just have to, like, okay, well, where can I cut to be able to add this other thing that I want to? No, screw it. I'm just going to add it all.
Right. Yeah, and Angel Hunter is designed. We're not doing floppy issues, so this isn't 24 pages of story for $30. This is the smallest volume of Angel Hunter, and we're putting them out in manga style volumes. Is now going to be 104 story pages. After this, the other 9 that are going to come out after this, there'll be a minimum of 120. Some of them may go up to 160 story pages. So, this is an intense buy-in. I think it's really going to resonate with people. Les and I both agree that we have something special here. So yeah, to be able to get it just right. Les and I are both perfectionists, and I come from the world of film and theater, so rehearsal and edits and reshoots, those things are fairly common in those worlds. So it easily translated for me over into comic book writing. And I really treat writing a comic like I'm producing a film or producing a play. So, if the story's not right, it's not worth putting out.
Yeah. And I didn't bring this up beforehand with the other questions I submitted to you, but like 10 volumes planned, that's ambitious. And like how, I guess, I mean, you have to at this point have like a lot of the story kind of locked in at least, or you at least kind of know where you're going.
Yeah, so Les and I have been working on a story Bible. Again, something very common in film, television specifically. So this is a Bible that we're going to refer back to. It builds the world. It gives us all the characters, all the special abilities that they have, all the different kinds of monsters, and we're or kaiju, and we're constantly updating that as we develop. So issue one is written, drawn, and the letters will be completed this week. And then I am about three-quarters of the way through writing volume two. Les will get started on the art. He's got a book he's working on right now. When he finishes that, he'll start on the art for Angel Hunter volume two. And then I have volume three, have a detailed outline for it. And then the other six volumes, I have a skeleton outline. So it just the skeleton outline, the difference between a detailed and a skeleton. The skeleton just maps out the major plot points, like this is where we're going in this issue, da 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 da. Da. And the detailed outline gives more of a breakdown of the different scenes that I'm writing, which characters are involved in what, and how that plot is going to tie into both volume one and volume three or volume four, five, six.
And so with especially with having like that, kind of so far out like planned and everything like that, do you allow yourself any kind of like wiggle room if you get like fan feedback like that they really resonate with this one character, or plot twist the favorite character that you have everybody else hates? Do you have that chance to kind of change things around a little bit?
Yeah, sure. There's definitely the opportunity to do that, and it's also a really big temptation to do that, especially in the manga world. Which Angel Hunter is very much a manga-inspired story. But you have to be very careful not to drift into the realm of fan service, because fan service, while it seems like a good idea to just give your audience what they want, it oftentimes ruins a lot of anime and a lot of manga. So while I will be there's wiggle room, like you said, to make adjustments. Like, if one character seems to be resonating more, we can bump their stories up a little bit, give them a few more, B or C plots without altering the A plot, because the A plot has to be consistent so that we can nail that ending when we get to volume 10. If we drift too far away from it, it's going to miss the mark. So it's a very thin line that you have to walk to avoid drifting into fan service.
So let's kind of talk about mangas in, well, I don't want to say mangas in general, but like, you have made a name for yourself in the world of horror comics. You were on last time we were talking about the World of Dracula trilogy, Prometheus and Chains rather. So while manga and comic books on the surface have a lot of similarities, what are some of the differences maybe behind the scenes?
There's a lot of difference within the way that the story is presented, the way that you use things like letters and sound effects in the story. There are specific types of characters that are expected, and they're expected to have certain types of looks to them. I mean, hairstyles, for example, are huge in anime, whereas in comics, they don't really matter. But hairstyles will suggest to the reader who a certain character is going to be, and what to expect from them. And then the story beats are slightly different. They're being true to manga. There are limitations to how mature you can get with the book, not in terms of violence. Violence is pretty much whatever you want to do with it. But the sexuality, the nudity, things like that are allowable in American comics, they're kind of frowned upon in manga. So we have to use those with a very light touch. But mostly it's the story structure and the appearances of the characters, certain themes that are expected, especially when you start separating in the different genres of manga. Like, there's difference between a shonen manga and a seinen manga. There are manga. A shonen manga is geared more toward young males, in their, preteens through teens, whereas seinen manga, which is what Angel Hunter is, it's aimed toward young adult men. There's manga that's specifically tailored to young women. All types of different genres, and each one of them has their own requirements and expectations, and we're doing our absolute best to honor those. That's been very important to me to pay. If we're going to be a manga inspired story, we have to pay respect to manga, especially because manga is very important to the Japanese culture. And, we don't want to be insulting to that. We don't want to be just exploiting it, stealing things. We want to show a passion and an appreciation for it. So we're sticking as closely as we can to those expectations and rules, if you will, of manga. Because if we're not going to do that, then why do a manga? Why not just do a comic book?
Definitely. And going back to what you're saying about, like the amount of violence that you can have in mangas, like I I've kind of like dipped my toe into the world of mangas. I don't read them as often as I would like to, but even still, like there have been a couple where I'll get to a page and I'm like, I didn't know you could do that to a human body. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
You check out things like Goblin Slayer and Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man, the violence is more comical.
Mhm.
When you get into, Goblin Slayer, for example, it is absolute brutality. I mean, it's insane. Of course, Goblin Slayer also somehow got away with some extreme sexual content. But when you think about it, and I really wondered how they got away with that. Because if you've never read or watched the anime for Goblin Slayer, the first time I watched episode one, my jaw was on the ground. I'm like, did I really just watch what I think I watched? And I thought to myself, how did they get away with that, given the Japanese culture and their viewpoints about sexuality? And I went back and watched it again, and I realized the way they got away with it is they didn't really show it. They implied it, and they implied it so well that you thought you saw it. It's kind of like in Pulp Fiction, the needle going into Uma Thurman's chest. Everybody knows in their mind they saw that needle go in, but they didn't. You saw the hand raise, and then you saw Uma Thurman jump up with a needle in her chest. So it was presented so well that it implanted this image in your brain that you didn't see. Goblin Slayer did much the same thing, and so I've tried to use some of that as inspiration in Angel Hunter as well.
So let's also talk about the art with Angel Hunter. The art is done by Les Gardner.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about Les and the creative process that you two had.
So Les has worked with me on literally every book I've ever written, in some shape, form, or fashion. He's done either covers, or he actually drew Reign of Dracula. He did backup inks on Prometheus and Chains. So Les and I, we've worked together for a very long time. Ever since I've been into comics, I've worked with Les on different projects. We're like brothers. We fight like hell. We hate each other and we love each other. But we're there for each other, and we're both very passionate about what we do. So the creative process with Les has been very volatile, but also very rewarding. In the beginning, Les fought me every single step of the way about making the art manga style. And in his mind, in the beginning, he almost didn't do the project because I told him it was going to be manga inspired. And he was, in his mind, manga was all Pokemon and One Piece and Dragon Ball Z. And he's like, I don't want to draw that art style. I just don't want to do it. And I was like, Les, that's not all that manga is. And so I handed him a copy of Berserk, and he read it, he tore through it, he messaged me. It was like 3 a.m. He messaged me, he was like, okay, I get it, let's do this. And so he started looking into Berserk, and he started looking into Battle Angel Alita and Attack on Titan, and anime that have a more almost a more American style of art, It's not really Americanized, but it drifts closer than say shonen manga does. So Les really got into it because it allowed him to do his Les is very much inspired by Bernie Wrightson, as am I. So Les was able to do his his heavy inks and his detailed pencils, but while also keeping it very much in the manga style. Basically, all he had to do was make the eyes bigger and make the faces look like cat. But yeah, so the creative process was fantastic as always with Les, and again, very volatile, but always, that's what brothers do.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the characters because Angel Hunter, like the little bit that I saw on the Kickstarter launch page, which you can is it like pre-register, I guess, is that what you can call
Yeah,
it?
you can sign up to be notified. You
Okay.
just click that little notify me button, and what it does is it'll send you a text message and an email or whatever, however you sign up for it, when it launches or anytime that we do an update for the campaign. It'll keep you notified, keep you in the loop. It doesn't sign you up necessarily to back it. We hope that you will, but if you don't or whatever, that's fine too. We just appreciate, that you're giving us a little bit of your attention, and it also helps us with the Kickstarter algorithm. The more people who are following it in advance, the more the more Kickstarter shows it to other people, which that's really key to a successful Kickstarter, at least as I understand it. I'm certainly no expert. This is my first go at a Kickstarter on my own. My previous Kickstarters have been managed by my publishers. Normally, my books go straight into stores. This is the first time I've gone to Kickstarter first, so that's interesting. But yeah, the characters. Angel Hunter is all about the characters. The story itself, the plot. This the story is very well developed, and it's a fantastic story. But I kind of have to say that if I don't say it, nobody's going. Except my mom. My mom would totally do that. But the basic plot, when you boil it down to Angel Hunter, it's a very basic seinen manga plot. It's four or three special children. They have powers. They have to discover them. They power scale. The enemies that they face get stronger and stronger, so they have to get stronger and stronger. A very basic plot. Everything that makes a seinen manga good, you're going to find in the plot of Angel Hunter. It's the characters that make Angel Hunter great. We have a character named Go, for example. He's a paraplegic warrior with an absolutely unyielding heart. He refuses to give up. In the middle of a war, when his village is being sacked by this massively brutal army and everybody's dying all around him. He crawls literally elbow to elbow, dragging his legs behind him to get to the temple and save one little egg. That's Go. Then you've got Azaraza or Azaraza. It's twin souls inhabiting the same body, and each one of them is fighting to exist. But in order for them both to exist, one of them is going to have to die. The only caveat is they can exist together in the world temporarily, but in order to do that, one of them has to inhabit a corpse, and corpses decay. So, and when they're inhabiting them, the corpses decay very rapidly. So, if they don't get back to one another to merge again, then they'll both cease to exist. And then we've got a character named Saoirse, who's my absolute favorite to write, because she is, again, filling a very common and important role in a manga. She's very aloof. She's very, you're basically wondering when she's going to break bad in the story. She's a very powerful mage that wields power over darkness. She can form these tendrils of darkness that can rip in and pull people's souls out of their body, which fuels her magic. But the way I refer to her is she walks in darkness, but she's tempted by the light. So, usually it's the good character who's tempted by the darkness, by the light. So we're wondering, is she going to side with humanity and save the world, or is she going to join the fallen and destroy it? And then we've got Aiden, who is our primary antagonist. I like to tell people I don't write heroes and villains. I write protagonists and antagonists. So Aiden, he leads this massive army. He's basically he's Kylo Ren or Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. That's the role that he fills. He is a zealot. He believes absolutely that he's saving the world by setting humanity free from the tyranny of the gods. And he's leading this big army. What I like to tell people is imagine if the Empire hit every planet in the Republic at the same time with equal brutal force. That's what's happening in Angel Hunter Volume 1. Aiden's leading this army. Aiden seems like he's super powerful. He's brilliant. He's a tactician. He's powerful. He's skilled with weapons, but he's rotting. He wears this armor, and the armor is the only thing that's keeping him together. If the armor breaks or if he ever takes it off, he literally falls apart. And then we have Shiroi Majo. She's the White Witch of Edessa. She's the hero of the third war of the Fallen. We're actually in the beginning of the fourth war in Angel Hunter. She's the high priestess to the Temple of the Radiant God, but she's also got a very dark, deep secret. She herself is one of the Fallen, and she has to hide that from the world because she was neutral in the first War of the Fallen, which that was the war in heaven where angels were cast down. She took a neutral stance, and by taking a neutral stance, she was kicked out along with them, and she finds herself on Earth, hated by both sides. She doesn't have a standing. So all of the characters in Angel Hunter are very complex. They're very light and dark, yin and yang. They have very strong merits, but they have equally or sometimes more powerful flaws. So there's a lot of gray area in this world.
So, in addition to the main book, will you also have like any add-ons that backers can also grab?
Oh, sure. We're going to have different variant covers, the standard Kickstarter things. We're also going to have stretch goals that will get us to the first stretch goal is going to be getting us to a color version of the book. And then the next stretch goal is going to get us to a comic book size. The main cover is going to be released in manga size, so 5 by 7 essentially. And so we'll get to a full size comic book like you're expecting if we hit a stretch goal. We're going to have add-ons with some of Les's previous work, like Apocalypse Girl. You'll be able to get my previous books, Cult of Dracula, Rise of Dracula, Prometheus and Chains, all of those. We're going to do t-shirts. I want to give people value with the rewards. I didn't want to do stickers and bookmarks and, crap that people don't care about. I want to give value. So it's story stuff. There'll be a stretch goal also that will allow us to add about another 40 pages to the book. That'll just be background character bios, a world map, a breakdown of the different cities, all of those things. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of value to this Kickstarter. Oh, and you'll be able to buy original art pages from the book, and each of our cover artists has agreed to do 10 sketches for backers, and they can be anything they want, any character, whatever. They'll draw them for you, and each artist you're going to get there'll be 10 slots for that.
That is awesome. So, so we had talked at the beginning of the show. You were back. You were on the show back in 2023. We were talking about Reign of Dracula. To refresh listeners' memories, what is the whole World of Dracula saga about?
So it's my Dark Tower. Stephen King, who's one of my favorite writers, he ties everything into the Dark Tower. I tie everything into Dracula. So it began with Cult of Dracula, which simple elevator pitch. It's Bram Stoker's Dracula in a Manson family inspired cult. And that's where we discover that Dracula isn't a person, it's a title, and it's passed down from generation to generation through this bloodline of women. When I was researching it, I found out that our Western culture is one of just a few that have male vampires. In most cultures, vampires are women. It goes back to the myth of the succubi. So Dracula in this world is every dark, scary, spooky woman that we wrote scary stories about to make children behave. You know, you better be good or La Llorona will steal you away, that type of. So they're all Dracula. So that continued into Rise of Dracula, which, in the very simple terms, is Escape from New York with vampires. And then Reign of Dracula, it wraps everything up, at least for that main trilogy. And it's a George Miller, Mad Max, the world is fucked apocalypse. It's insane. I don't even really know how to explain it, except, I don't do acid, but if I did, this is probably what I would write. And so Prometheus and Chains is the first Dracula adjacent book that I did. It's not necessarily a Dracula book, but it ties in. It's my take on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, set in the post-World War II atomic age. Victor and Elizabeth flee Nazi Germany in 1939, work on the Manhattan Project here in the US. While building the bomb, Elizabeth is exposed to high levels of radiation, and her death from cancer sends Victor into a spiral of addiction, depression, and an obsession with bringing her back to life. So rather than looking at Victor Frankenstein as the arrogant jerk that he is, we try to humanize him a little bit, and we look at him, whereas his grief is driving him to attempt to conquer death. And I think I came pretty close to making Victor a sympathetic character, and that ain't easy because Victor is a jerk and he's absolutely the villain of Frankenstein. So those currently are the books in the world of Dracula. Angel Hunter, there's going to be some Easter eggs because it's going to tie in loosely. Just like in Stephen King, not everything features the gunslinger. Sometimes it's just a little signpost or a little reference. And so Angel Hunter will link into the world of Dracula some way, somehow as well.
Now, since there has been a little bit of time since you've finished up, this original trilogy with the World of Dracula, do you see yourself revisiting it in the future, or is that book closed for a while?
Eventually, I mean, I eventually have to go back and finish Reign of Dracula. It's only two issues of it are complete. And just being 100% honest, I kind of got burned out on it, and I couldn't make myself go back to it. I was doing anything I could do but write Reign of Dracula. I just needed to get it, especially after Prometheus and Chains. It took so much out of me. I mean, a lot of people by now know. My wife Amber passed away in 2020. So while Victor's working through his PTSD in Prometheus and Chains, that's me working through my PTSD. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever written. I mean, there was not a single writing session that didn't end with me in tears. There were many writing sessions that ended with me vomiting into a trash can next to my desk. It was that difficult to go through all that. So when it was over, I felt like I had spent everything I had in the world of horror, and I needed to step out of it and play in a different sandbox. So, long way of getting around to answering your question. Yes, I will eventually get back to those, but right now, I need to be in a different headspace, and Angel Hunter allows me to do that. While Angel Hunter is a dark fantasy, it's not necessarily horror. So it gives me a little bit to stretch my legs, spread my wings, and do something a little different. And I think that will ultimately make my horror books better, because I'll be fresh and I'll have learned new things and new ways of telling stories.
So you've been doing comics for a while, you're doing manga now. What advice do you have for somebody who's wanting to kind of follow that same path?
Number one, most important advice I can ever give anyone who writes anything: finish your script. I had the opportunity to attend a lecture by Joss Whedon, and he said something very profound to me. He said that 80% of scripts that get started never get finished. So if you finish your script, you are already in the top 20% of every script that has ever been started. That's not a bad place to be. So finish your script, no matter how terrible you think it is, finish it. Then go back and edit it, work on it, put the work in. The writing is easy, but it's not easy. I know that's contradictory there, but it's very easy to sit down and tell a story, but it's not easy to finish that story because we get distracted and we don't make the time to do it. To be a professional, you have to dedicate the time to write. You have to set specific office like me. I keep office hours every day. I'm in my office writing at these times, even if I don't have anything to write. I mean, even if I'm just typing, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I'm in there, I'm writing, I'm doing something because I found that when I put myself into a position to be creative, I am more creative. So you have to kind of know who you are and who you want to be. You have to know the difference between being a pro and a hobbyist. And there's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist. Hobbyists out there create some amazing books, but they don't put the time, the effort, and the resources into it to be a pro. So decide what you are, know who you are, and know what you want to accomplish, and then follow the steps to be the best of either of those that you can possibly be.
So, do you have any cons lined up in the near future?
Yeah, I'm doing, let's see. I'm only doing 9 conventions this year. I've kind of cut myself back, mostly because one, it's exhausting, and two, I need more time to finish more of Angel Hunter because I got a lot of volumes to write. So I just did C2E2 and MegaCon before that. I believe my next big convention is Heroes Con in Charlotte. Then I'm doing Dragon Con after that. I think I'm skipping San Diego Comic Con this year, but I will be doing New York Comic Con and then Big Apple Comic Con in December. And then I'm going to pick up a few smaller conventions in my local area, things I can drive to in 2 or 3 hours. But those are the big ones: Heroes Con, Dragon Con, New York Comic Con, and Big Apple.
You were at C2E2.
Yeah.
That is one of those things because I was up there too and had no idea that you were there.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, like there's been more than one occasion where I'm like walking through Artist Alley, which that's like one of my honestly that's probably my favorite part of any convention. And I will be just walking by a table and be like, "Oh, hey,
Like, hey, I didn't know you were here."
yeah," and I like read all of your stuff. How is this a thing? So
Yeah.
but yeah, that just shows you how massive these kinds of conventions can be. And
Oh, they are.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And,
same thing with me. I know people, I've worked with people and they'll be at a convention. I won't even be aware of it until I just accidentally stumble on them. And sometimes I don't even know they're there. I miss them the whole weekend.
yeah,
And these are people that have, drawn covers for me on 3 or 4 books, and it's wild. These conventions can be very, very big.
yeah. And speaking from the other side of that Artist Alley table, I agree with you. These conventions can be very exhausting.
Yes, they can. Yeah. I used to be that, man. I used to be, that wide-eyed kid just, bopping around a convention, dropping my jaw like, holy shit, that's Jim Lee. Oh my God, that's Todd McFarlane. That's Kelly Sue DeConnick. And now that I'm on the other side of the table, I'm walking around saying, holy shit, that's Jim Lee. Oh my God, that's Todd McFarlane. That's Kelly Sue DeConnick. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I'm on the same side of the table that they are. Last year, no, yeah, year before last at San Diego Comic Con, I'm doing this YouTube live show that Jen King is hosting. And I'm sitting there, and the next guest to follow me is Jim Lee.
Oh God.
And yeah, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, I'm the opening act for Jim Lee. Holy shit, how does that happen? And I got to talk to him briefly. He's such a nice guy. We kind of bonded over a shared love of Naruto. It was just so cool, man. No matter how many of these conventions I do, I just can't get over the fact that I get to be a guest, that I get to sit on the creator side of the table and people get to come up to me because they love my work or, they just want to meet me. It's such a trippy, awesome, humbling experience, man.
I can only imagine. So, is there anything else like coming down the pipeline that you might be able to tease for us?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of books that I'm working on. I'm still working on my Dorian Gray story. It's been put on the back burner because I wanted to get out of horror. I'm working on a book with Spike Jarrell called Athena, Vampire Princess. And I got a couple more things that we aren't ready to talk about just yet. But by and large, the next 4 or 5 years of my life are going to be tied up with Angel Hunter. But I still want to pick up and do some other books, in that time. And, there's a couple of, I'm to the point now where I'm getting opportunities to work with publishers on their properties. So rather than playing in my sandbox, I get to go play in theirs, which is kind of cool, but not ready to really talk about those just yet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, Rich, how can people find you online?
Usually they open up a browser and Google.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, social media is just at Rich Davis Comics. You can also follow at World of Dracula. Angel Hunter has its own social media presence at Angel Dash Hunter. And you can hit me up on those, man. If you message me, I'm going to answer. I sometimes it takes me a minute to get back to people, but I always will reply if you reach out to me because especially if you're asking for advice, because when I was getting started, there were some really cool pros who had no reason to even give me the time of day, and they took the time to give me advice and guidance. And I think it would be very insulting to them if I didn't pay that forward. So if you reach out to me, I'm gonna reply.
That is amazing. And that is like one of the really cool things about comic creators because you're not the first person that I've talked to that is that type of way, like it's the kind of jerks that you were, describing that just won't respond to people. Like that's the minority, I feel like
Yeah,
a lot of
very,
times.
very much. People, my experience at least, everybody's going to have their different experiences, but mine has been that this is such a welcoming industry. People legitimately want to help people succeed. I want you to do well. I don't look at you as competition. You're my community. And the more people out there that are producing amazing, unique, interesting work, the stronger the whole community is, the stronger the industry is. And so, yeah, the majority of the people that I've met working in comics are ridiculously supportive. They'll even go above and beyond, like, more than you could ever expect. So, I do. I love this industry and I'm very grateful that I get to do what I do.
So one more time, give us the info on Angel Hunter.
Yeah, Angel Hunter, seinen manga inspired story about humanity's first strides after being expelled from Eden, having to claw out an existence in a world dominated by 13 fallen angels and an army of kaiju Nephilim. Kickstarter launches May 25th, and then we'll be going to comic book stores later in the year. So, yeah, please go follow it, sign up to be notified, and then when we launch, back it. Les and I, we both believe we've got something special here. I feel the same way about Angel Hunter that I felt about Cult of Dracula. And we all know where that went because I wouldn't be here talking to you if it didn't blow up the way it did. So I think Angel Hunter is a very special project. I think the book is going to be amazing. I think it's going to have some opportunities that we may or may not already be discussing for it to be adapted into other mediums, perhaps animated. So yeah, I think it's something that people are going to want to get involved with, and they're going to stay for the long haul because it's really a special project.
So yeah, that sounds awesome. The like you said, the Kickstarter for Angel Hunter, it starts on May 25th. I will have the link in the description for you to go and check out the pre-launch page, get notified. Richard Davis, always a great time to talk to you. And best of luck on this Kickstarter. It sounds so
Thanks
fun.
so much. Wonderful to be here as always.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Geek Awakens. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then shoot us an email at thegeekawakenspodcast@gmail.com.
It would be a shame if you didn't follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Geek Awakens Podcast or on Blue Sky at The Geek Awakens.
Music provided and created by E. Cannon Beats.
Logo created and designed by Shay McCain.
That's it for this week. We're boldly gone.